Okay, here we go. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever struggled with pricing in your business? What do you price your service or products at? I think most of us have. And, a lot of us, we're concerned, should we raise our prices? We want to, but, we're afraid we might lose sales. I think most business owners struggle with that from time to time. My name is Robert Poole, and today I'm going to show you how you can actually raise your prices with confidence and without fear of losing sales. Recently in one of the videos, we talked about the difference between cost, price, and value. And just as a quick review, and that I recommend that video, a cost is basically, of course, how much it takes to get a product or service out the door. What's your investment into it, so to speak? Price is what we're actually charging, what our customer pays for it. And value is what our customer thinks it's worth. It's not what we think it's worth, it's what they think it's worth. And so today we're going to talk about the price issue, the middle one there. That is the price that we charge our customers or charge our clients. So really, I think there's four things and four reasons why we struggle with pricing. Number one is, we lack some kind of confidence in our mind um, about our product or service. Is it worth what we're asking people to pay for it? And then of course we've got the fear of losing sales. It's like if we raise our price, are people going to stop buying from us? That sort of thing. And three, we think, well, if we price ourselves as a commodity, the low price leader, that we're going to get more sales. Low price leader. Get my handwriting there. Not one of my strong suits. And then last comes to buying business is the term. And basically that means, discounting our product or service so low that becomes the reason that people buy it. And we think that if we do that, then they're going to buy from us. And I think if you've been in business long enough, you're probably guilty of all four of these at one point or the other. I know I certainly am. Um, you know, so why do we struggle in some of these areas? About lack of confidence. Sometimes we have an untested product or service. We're not sure it's worth the money from our perspective. Maybe in the back of our mind we're thinking, well, could I afford this? Could I buy this? And some of this goes back to that other video I was talking about, the cost, price, and value issue. Why some salespeople and business owners that are doing the selling have issues with purchasing things and thinking, wow, that's a lot of money to purchase for that. I don't know if I can ask that much. That's a little bit different issue, but I would go back to that video. But bottom line is we think, or question whether it's worth it or not. The fear of losing sales, is a big one. Our fear is that, hey, they're going to go somewhere else. Let's face it. We're thinking, everybody is out there shopping for the lowest price, and so we've got to offer that low price. If we got to be the lowest price so people come to us. We don't think that people buy if we actually charge more, if we raise our prices. And then you've got the commodity idea. People think, you look at companies like McDonald's. They're clearly a commodity. What do they sell? Hamburgers and fries and Cokes and whatever. And they're not exactly a high end, as we all know. They're definitely a low price leader when it comes to fast food. I don't know how they stack up against Wendy's and Taco Bell, but I think in general McDonald's is one of the lower price ones. And so we think, well, the reason McDonald's is the clear dominant restaurant in that business in the fast food arena is because they have rock bottom prices. And I'll talk about why that is, and how that's a misperception. But so we look at that, we tend to think, oh, well, that's a good idea. Let's dominate the market by lowering our prices, down to the bottom, and a lot of people recommend that. And then, of course, buying business, we see other competitors out there and we think, oh, well, I'm going to buy business so I can increase my market share or whatever. And let's face it, though, buying business is, and I'm just going to say it, it's kind of lazy. It's because we want the fast, easy way. Because let's face it, what's easier? Developing great sales and marketing processes, great marketing messages, spending time working on your perfect clients and doing all that, customizing it, that's a lot of work. Or, in our minds, we think, well, if I just cut the price down 30%, I'll live with a lower margin and boom, problem solved. You don't have to do anything. So it's kind of a lazy thing. Again, I've done it myself, so I'm not criticizing, but we got to be real. So I think, based upon my own experience in 25 years of business, and, I've certainly been guilty of all four of these areas. And I think most business owners, after you've been in business a while, will experience this to an extent, either in a small way or a big way. So the question, of course, is how do we get rid of these? There's no silver bullet in life and most things, and this is one of those things but the way we deal with it really is a mentality change. And, we talked about some of the beliefs that cover this. And so it's about changing those beliefs and realizing that those are not really valid beliefs. And if we change the way we look at things and understand how things work, then, we can actually start reminding ourselves of that in the pricing process. And then as we see evidence of that, that further builds that belief. So I'm going to go back through these and then talk about, how we can definitely change the mentality, the mindset behind some of this stuff, So let's look at the first one, lack of confidence. There's really, you got to put this in two categories, because you have, sort of startup businesses, or not even a business starting up, but a new product or service. What it costs to produce that product or service, either in time, if it's a service, or, production, whatever. So you can use sort of the cost plus model, if you will. How much does it cost? And then we're going to add 10%, 20%. We're just going to guess. And, so you got to start somewhere, of course. So you put that out there, and once you've sold one unit, of course, you've got some indicator as to what the perceived value is from the buyer. If they bought it, well, they clearly think that it's worth enough to part with their cash for whatever you're selling. And so what we want to do is, of course, gather a few more sales, and then we bump up the price a little bit and see what happens. Part of the problem is that people will bump up the price, and go, and then maybe sales will dip a little bit immediately, or people will suddenly tell them, well, that's kind of expensive. And we let one or two naysayers, discourage us. And so we got to be careful. It's like everything else in business. We got to make sure we have proper sample sizes. It reminds me of years ago when we were first starting out with our company. At that time, all we were doing was doing lead generation, appointment setting. Obviously, we do a lot more these days, but it was all cold calling and telemarketing. And we had started selling primarily to business brokers, which are, kind of like a real estate agent, but they sell businesses. They list businesses for sale and sell and go through the process. So their goal of most business brokers is to get listings, just like a realtor, and then they sell it and get a commission. Well, we started cold calling, and I'll never forget, there was a guy, here in the Phoenix area that we cold called, a business broker. And at the time we were offering, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like $240 per 10 hours of lead generation, appointment setting, cold calling, we thought, geez, that's a pretty good deal. And that was a low price. At the time we were charging way too low for that, because if you know anything about that business brokers can make quite a bit of money. Like at a minimum, they're going to make 10 grand from a sale. That's a very small business, but they can make, multiple six figures on the deal as well. So, so we're thinking, hey, if we get them, an appointment or two in that, 10-hour period, bam, that's a great return. And this one guy, said, yeah, for $240, I'd expect at least 4 listings. And I was flabbergasted, because it doesn't make any sense, So we got discouraged. We listened to this one guy, and we thought, oh, geez, maybe this won't work, But, thank God we didn't stop and let this one guy who had this irrational, pricing issue, think of it, he was getting totally off as far as value. We didn't let him discourage us. We kept going, and we found, with other prospects, and we built our business into a multi-million-dollar business, literally on that industry and that business model. So again, point of that is that, sample size, like everything. Don't let a couple people discourage you, but you have to be sensitive and get that price information. Okay, so that's your startup business or your startup product or service. But what do we do if we got an established product or service we've already been selling? Of course, that makes it a little bit easier. We've got a baseline. They've got some kind of history of sales. But what we really have to focus on at that point is value, and specifically perceived value. Again, go back and look at that other video if you haven't, because perceived value is what we're talking about. It doesn't matter what we think the value is. It matters what the marketplace thinks it is, what our customers think it is worth. Um, you know, and so how do we tell if a customer values it? Well, if we're consistently raising prices, every 6 months or a year or whatever it is, we'll get that feedback from them. And sometimes customers will tell you flat out, hey, this is too expensive. You raised it too much. You priced me out of it. But sometimes you can get it from the data. The sales will drop off or whatever, and you have to make that decision. But if you do find that you think you're overpriced or whatever, you go, we might have stretched it too much or whatever. I would say don't at that point don't drop your price back down. With this yo-yo thing, keep the price at whatever you raised it to, and it's much easier to increase the perceived value. So focus on whatever your product or service is, keep it at the same price, and increase the value in the mind of the people who are buying it. So, add extra things to that product or service, ancillary products that they get, with it or whatever, just some kind of increased perception so that it gets up to where the price is. And it's much more effective in the long run because we should always be thinking about increasing the perceived value. So focus on that less and not, of dropping the price again. And if the market is paying your current price, everybody seems happy. There's not a huge resistance to it. Well, what does that tell you? You're not charging enough, which, I would say, well, all businesses I've worked with over the years, that is pretty much all of us. Most of us should raise our prices right now, today. Some of us should double our prices. And it's because we, again, go through all these issues, and it's a lot of it is lack of confidence and fear of losing sales, and our perception of our value, what we value it as versus what our clients and our customers value it, because we don't get out of our own head. So most of the time we want to raise prices. Um, and then the last one, or excuse me, second one, fear of losing business. Part of it, and I think the biggest part of it actually is we think people are buying because of price. And again, it's not about price; it's about value. It goes to the old investment idea. If I give you $100, would you give me $10 for that $100? Well, of course you would, because the value is huge. It's a no-brainer. So it's not about the price. If it was $1 million, if I give you $1 million, would you give me 100,000? Hey, even if you didn't have 100,000, you bet you'd find a way to get it. So it's about perceived value and what customers think. And we think in our minds as salespeople or business owners, when we set pricing is, we think that price is all that matters to people. And it's sort of, I'll just say it, it's kind of an arrogant view because if you think about it, we really have no idea why somebody's purchasing something. Um, you know, they're going after a result that they're trying to get, but everyone has different results that they're trying to get, different reasons for buying, different reasons to get that result. They may be trying to get the same result, but they have different reasons for doing it. And it's arrogant for us to think that the reason is price, because it's not. There's some kind of agenda, some kind of thought process they have internally that's telling them that. So price is, yes, is the factor, but it's not the factor. And we make too much of a big deal about it, and we get too scared in our own minds about it. People aren't always rational. Sales is emotional, and we're emotional human beings, and that's the way our brains work. If we assume that price is all that matters, again, it's kind of an arrogant way of thinking about it. The next one, thinking about again commodity pricing, the McDonald's example, or any example where people will say, well, you got to lower your price drastically so you can dominate the marketplace or whatever. It's like, great, you may get a lot of market share doing that immediately, but there's a lot of other problems with it. And a lot of times people think that that's a good idea, but the problem is that they don't realize that companies that are doing that are often they're dropping prices on a specific product as a loss leader. A McDonald's selling you, they switch to like I drink way too much Diet Coke, and if you go through McDonald's, they just raised the prices, but it used to be like $1 for any size, soda or tea or whatever. And they're vastly underpriced. You go through and get a large Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi at Taco Bell, and I think it's like $4 or Jack in the Box or something. And so McDonald's is doing that, but that keeps me coming back to McDonald's because I want that Diet Coke because it's the best Diet Coke out there. I end up buying other stuff when I'm there, and that's where they're making up all their money. So they're using it as a loss leader just to bring me in the door. They're not using it as across the board a low price leading, but somehow we sometimes look at it and think, oh, well, that's what works, lowering our prices to the commodity level. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that, is a problem. But one of the reasons that's a problem is, if you think about it, there is always somebody with deeper pockets, particularly in small business, and if we are the low price leader, we have to constantly be in fear of lowering our prices because we're always going to have a competitor, another business that comes in that can take losses much more than we can, and they're going to undercut us. And then, so what do? We got to either match them or we got to undercut them, and it's this race to the bottom of the mentality of having a commodity. So we think that somehow this idea of market share is going to save us, but somebody else will come in and do it. It's sort of a Me Too type of pricing model. The last one, buying business by discounting. Again, this is it's kind of a combination of the first three, if you will, but it may sound easy, but it can be so damaging. This is something that I remember one of my mentors talking about early in my business career. He said, "Don't discount, don't buy business." And if you think about it, when you're lowering your price to buy business, so to speak, there's all kinds of problems. Number one, it attracts the wrong kind of people. If somebody is super price sensitive and that's their main focus, generally there's no loyalty. They're not going to refer their friends or family and their colleagues. There's the people who customer service nightmares. They complain a lot. That's where your refunds and your chargebacks and all that come from. And these people are difficult to deal with. So it goes back to the stuff we've talked about before with, how important it is to have the right kind of clients. And those are the people we don't want as clients, so it's better not to have them. And so buying business and discounting, deeply like that, I'm not saying you can't ever discount, but discounting heavily just to buy a business, so to speak, you're bringing in the wrong people. So you're actually damaging your business, damaging their reputation, because what are those people going to do? They're going to go badmouth you somewhere else because they're unhappy, because those kind of people are always looking for the cheapest deal and don't care about the product or service, or don't care about quality, don't care about value. They're just so focused on that. We don't want them as customers because they're going to do long-term damage to our company. So we don't want to buy business. If you think about it also, buying business makes it difficult for us to actually sell our products to, the kind of customers we want. Give you an example. Let's say, and I don't know anything about cars, so forgive me on this, but let's say you're going to go buy a Ferrari, and let's just say there's one for $250,000. I have no idea if there's a Ferrari for $250,000, but let's just say there was. You walk into the dealership, and you know that it's about $250 or whatever, and you're like, okay, that's what I'm going to pay. And the salesperson walks up to you and says, hey, yeah, you want this car? Hey, you know what? It's normally $250,000, but today only, if you buy it, it's $25,000. And what's the first thought that comes through your mind? Well, what's wrong with it? Why am I getting 10 or 90% off or whatever? This guy's scamming me, or what's the catch? Type of thing. And so it makes us really nervous. It makes us hard to buy because it kills the trust. And trust is the holy grail in selling. If people can't trust us, they're not going to buy from us. So in that case, the undercharging and we're actually doing a disservice by trying to buy their business discounting, and it actually backfires on us because it loses trust. We kind of messed this up for quite a few years early on in our business when we try to do basically the same thing. One of the biggest objections that we had when we sold our service, those early days of selling lead generation appointment setting was not because, it was too expensive or any other reason. The objection was, well, how are you guys doing this? How are you doing this so cheaply? Why isn't it more expensive? Literally, our low-cost buying business discounting model was an objection because people were like thinking, this is a little weird. These guys are real. Maybe they're doing something because there's no way they can do it for this price. And at the time we were a small company, and we made the math work, but that was our biggest objection. So we actually turned people off because of our discounting and the way we were so focused on lowering the price. Eventually, we learned a lesson on that and raised to more reasonable levels. And suddenly it got easier to sell that. So there's a lot of problems with the buying business model. So I would really recommend that you avoid that because it's very tempting, again, because it sounds easy. You don't have to put any effort into sales and marketing. You just kind of, lower the price and more people will come, again, for all those reasons that you don't want those people. So, bottom line, when we look at these four things, as business owners, sometimes we get more concerned about price than our actual clients and our customers are, because we're so focused on it, we think that that's what matters, when what really matters is that value, and more importantly, more specifically, the perceived value. So in my mind, we should be consistently raising our prices under some interval, whether it's over a specific period of time, every 6 months, every year, whatever, or if there's, some sales or growth target, when you're going to raise prices. And we want to really avoid being the low-cost leader. I think I think it's Dan Kennedy, I could be wrong, but said, that there's no strategic advantage to being, the second highest people in the marketplace or the second lowest in the marketplace. And I would say there's no advantage to being the very lowest either, because somebody's going to immediately come along and undercut you eventually. So in my mind, and this is a subject for another video, but we want to be the premium offering in the market. It's much better to be the premium. You get better clients, and there's a whole other bunch of reasons. But even if you're not, you definitely don't want to be the low-cost leader because of all the problems we talked about. So we want to focus not on low price, but increasing that perceived value of what our customers think things are worth. So don't be tempted again with the big one, the buying business, because of all the reasons we talked about, the reputation, the damage that it does to your business over time, because it's a short-term shot in the arm when you'll bring in some sales or whatever, but you'll pay for it over a period of time. So don't, have the discipline not to make that mistake. So, I would look at your business model and what you're doing right now, and you probably need to raise prices. But, if you feel comfortable where you are right now, figure out when you're going to raise prices. It shouldn't be if you should, it should be when. So I hope this was helpful today. If you're not subscribed to the channel, we got a bunch of other videos, like I said, on there. So hit that sub button on YouTube and share this with your friends and colleagues. Really helps us out. And hit that thumbs up like button. It helps me out personally. So I appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you in the next video.